Hello everyone, my name is Jen and welcome to the Book Refuge and welcome to another weekly wrap-up. So this video is getting recorded a little bit late in the day because I was traveling this weekend. It was one of my niece's birthdays, so I was home with my family and I'm just getting back now. But you guys won't know that unless you are a channel member because you guys will still get this video at the same time. There's a lot of stuff going to be happening for the Book Refuge in the next couple of weeks, and it's a little bit like amazing. Very, very excited about a lot of stuff coming up, but also starting next week there will be Outlander reviews coming back. Outlander starts next Sunday, and so I'm planning to have if you have Stars, the actual app of Stars, you can get the show at midnight Eastern time. So if you're in Central time like me, I can get it at 11 p.m. on Saturdays. And so I plan to watch it, and then I will take my notes, and then in the morning before church, I will review it, and it will be up for my channel members to watch in preview. And then I'm planning to do live premieres of my reviews of this on Mondays at 7 p.m. That's what I plan to do, barring anything getting in the way. So I used to put them up as soon as I possibly could on Sunday mornings, but there's a lot of people who aren't able to watch it the night before, and I just want to be able to give myself kind of like the maximum, like best time to drop it. So I will drop those videos on Monday at 7 p.m. Central, and if you're able to, you'll be able to watch the watch my review live with me, and we'll like comment together. So I'm going to test that out and see how it works. This was over 2 years ago, or about 2 years ago, that I did reviews the first time around, and I had no idea if people were going to watch them at all. And it ended up being a really good thing. And I did do live premieres of my reviews in the past, but I did them on like Sundays or whatever. But anyway, speaking of channel members who will get to see the content early, we have a new channel member to welcome, and that is Dusty Dean. She joined at the Faded Friends level, and I just wanted to thank you so much, Dusty, for choosing to support my channel. It means so much to me. I mean, you guys are the reason that I continually have the energy to do what I do, because you guys put your money where your mouth is and you support me. And it's amazing. Like, I feel so blessed. But we're going to dive in. I have 13 books and fan fiction to talk about this week. I will say that I just put up a deep dive into the fan fiction that I've read so far, and that will be linked up here. So I'm going to try to not go too deep into those. I will just kind of tell you who they're about and like my rating and everything, because I have an hour-long video talking about fan fiction and I really don't want to repeat myself. But that was a video that was highly requested. So far, it's not doing super great. So, you know, I'm going to encourage you to go watch that if you want more details on fan fiction and like where I got it from and my whole journey with that. And also, people who don't care about my fanfiction reading as much, they aren't forced to hear about it again. Because I did have a couple people commenting on my fanfiction video that, why are you making a video about this? And fanfiction is the easy way out for authors, and it was kind of infuriating me. So if I can limit that to that, we will. But anyway, let's dive in. And we're starting with some fanfic because, as I said, I've been a little obsessed. So the first piece of fiction that I read last week was Wait and Hope by MightbeWriting. As usual, I got this off of AO3. This one is a Draco and Hermione, and it is very interesting because it's a second chance romance. It has amnesia trope in it, and it's also like an enemies to lovers all over again, because at the beginning of this fic, which this one's a pretty short, it's on the shorter side of some fanfics, Hermione has lost her memory. There's a spell that happened or an incident that happened, and she has lost the last 6 years of her life. She is currently married to Malfoy, but that happened sometime within the last 6 years, and she doesn't remember him. She only remembers him as the jerk from school, and you know, a Death Eater. That's all she remembers of Draco. And her friends, her family, like Draco himself are all like, what do we do? So she gets told by the healers that it's best for her to go back to her home, try to get back in her routine and see if any memories come back. And so, yeah, she basically falls in love with Draco all over again. So this one was very sweet. This was a very slow burn. This was actually probably the most tame of all the fan fictions that I read. But it was so sweet. So I gave this one 4 stars. It had only a 2 on the spice rating for me. But if you want a very like romantic and less about like the lusty sides of fanfic, I highly recommend this one to you. Then I read Awkward by Ciule. I don't know how to say that, you know, but this one was a Taboo Age Gap. This was a Severus Snape and Hermione Granger. This one was, they're kind of forced into a marriage by a new marriage law that the ministry has put out. This one takes place when Hermione is still at school. It starts in 6th year, so it's like an alternate 6th year to the end. Snape is still a double agent in this story, and it's actually Dumbledore who kind of convinces him that he needs to marry her because Hermione has turned 17 and there's a law with the ministry that everyone 17 and older needs to be married and try to be having babies, and this has just been enacted. So Snape is also single and within the age bracket of people who have to get married, and Dumbledore doesn't want him married off to someone who could blow his cover and ruin all the work they've been doing for all these years. So Dumbledore kind of pushes him to choose Hermione. The only thing is, because this is like a marriage law, there's a spell put out where they are like forced to, you know, consummate this marriage and be actively trying to have an heir. Like at least once a week, they have to be doing it. So they're also, I think in this one, everyone knows she's married to Snape. There's another one I'm going to talk about where like it's kind of a secret or whatever. But anyway, this one was very interesting. This one does have, let me get to it. This one does have rape, sexual assault, dubious consent, violence. Not all of it is committed by Snape to Hermione. There are other things going on that I don't want to spoil because, again, Severus is undercover with the Dark Lord still, so Hermione gets brought around the Death Eaters and some interesting things happen there. But it is also, like, I would consider, like, the reason that I put, like, rape in this is that they are, like, it's one of those where, it's so weird to say, but it's like a mutual rape of each other in the beginning because this spell, it's like the ministry is raping them. That's the best way to say it, because I don't want to point a finger at, like, Severus or Hermione because Snape has no desire to have sex with her any more than she does with her teacher. It's the spell that the ministry puts on them that literally makes them do it. So I would consider that a mutual assault. Like, if neither one of them wants to be doing this and they're forced to, or they could go to prison, I'd say that's a two-way thing, right? Or they're both, neither is into it. So this one I also gave 4 stars, but this one was a 3.5 on the spice scale. There were some parts of this that were pretty brutal when we had to be around the Death Eaters, so keep that in mind. Then I was kind of excited. I read my first Karla Sorensen. I got this book and another book in this series from the Target sale that happened recently. I haven't even had this one in a book haul yet. I have just been, as you all know, I mean, you know it, I've been really sucked into fan fiction, and I was really having a problem having any traditionally published or indie published book like holding my attention. It was almost like I was having a book slump, but I wasn't, because like I was reading fanfic and I wasn't in the mood for anything else. But this was a pretty short book. It doesn't even hit 100 pages, so it's novella length. And it is the first book in Love at First Sight. I know this is a recover. This is a part of Smarty Pants Romance. And this is the first in a series. So this is a Friends to Lovers. It is, sorry, let me see what else I see on here. Yes, and they actually meet when the heroine is 16, and I think the hero, he's just a couple years older than her, and he like shows up at this meet for there is wheelchair basketball, and our heroine, she has, let me see if I pronounce it right, I don't want to spell it wrong, I don't want to pronounce it wrong, hold on, where did I put it? Okay, she has transverse myelitis. I apologize if I said that wrong, but she's had that since she was a child, and so she's in a wheelchair. She is in physical therapy, and she has been friends with the hero for years. Was it 5 years they've been friends? 5 years. And this book was so heartwarming. This hero was so sweet. It's called Baking Me Crazy because our heroine works at a bakery for this. But our hero, he's so into her. His whole family cares about her. They actually redid parts of their house to make it wheelchair accessible for her as their son's friend. They've like welcomed her into their home. They love her. She doesn't have a great relationship with her mom. Her mom is a bit like overprotective, but also not caring about certain things. She's a very weird mix of like, she's worried about her daughter, but she also doesn't take a lot of time to try to understand things that could help make life better for her daughter. So it's very interesting. So yeah, this was kind of a slow burn, even though the book isn't very long. Just imagine that like it's taken them 5 years to get to this point. And there wasn't a lot of smut in this, which I understand why not, but I was also a little disappointed because the fact that there was a heroine in a wheelchair, I wanted there to be more sexy times with them, you know, how they do it, for lack of a better term, and how it worked for them. But as it is, we only really got one sex scene, and I feel that it had great representation. Although I'm not in a wheelchair, I don't have this disease, so I couldn't tell you that for sure. But it is like her wheelchair and her disability is very prominent in the story. And there's an author's note from Karla in the beginning saying that she wanted to do respect to this condition. She did as much research as she could. She had sensitivity readers. And again, as someone who I only can read it with like my eye for it, I feel that our heroine isn't overly down on herself for her disability while still being realistic about, you know, what her drawbacks are. But she's a very like positive person, and there are only a couple of times where she's just like, oh, this is frustrating me. But like, I also feel like that's not impossible. You know, like that is not out of the ordinary, that you would have moments of being disappointed or feel like you're missing out on things. And the hero, he really is a gem. Like he's the one of the best parts of this. He's so sweet. He's such a good partner and friend to her. I love it. Then I read Test of Fate by Mrs. L120. And this was a Severus and Hermione fanfiction, so Snape and Hermione fanfic. This one was a taboo, like fated mate, obviously it's an age gap, it's student teacher, enemies to lovers, kind of. And then this one also had a surprise pregnancy in it, so this one had like just a whole bunch. This one again was shorter. And this one takes place right after the fight at the ministry at the end of 5th year. And in it, Hermione gets injured very badly. Like she almost dies. And Dumbledore assigns Snape to take care of her because they can't send her home to her parents with the kind of injuries that she has. She needs like magical healing. So Snape takes her to his like personal like cottage, and he's helping her heal and take care of her. And they actually start to feel drawn to each other. And then they find out about that both of them at different times in their lives had this same like prophecy spoken to them about who their true partner would be, and they somehow figure out like I think there was like a charm or something they were both given by this like fortune teller, and when he's taking care of her, they both discover that they have this same thing, so they just know that they're kind of like fated to be together. But then like they have to go back to school, and they're like, would we be able to carry on with an affair when we're both, you know, in school? So this one ends up being kind of like a classic, well, not classic because it's fanfic, you know, like student teacher forbidden romance. This does have an underage, like, you know, she's 16, 17. For the wizarding people, like 17 is an adult in the wizarding world. So, written, but if you're still worried about 17 being the age of someone, just know that. But I actually had a fun time with this one. Severus was like, he was very possessive, and I loved it. This one I gave 4 stars, and this one had 4 on the spice rating. Like, whew, there was some A+ smut in this. Then I got to read a copy of Ciule by Trisha Wolfe. So this book is already out, but I did receive like a free copy of it from Trisha because I'm reading an arc of Malady, which is already out because she moved up the release date. And so she told us as reviewers, she was like, don't rush, like, just try to get your review done in the first couple of weeks. It's fine because I've moved, you know, she's like, I moved the goalposts, so don't worry about it. But she did send me a copy of Ciule because I didn't realize that it was a duet when I signed up for Malady. That was totally my bad. I did not do my research for that. But, so I read Ciule, and, oof, this was tough, and I feel bad asking for the arc of the second one because I really now don't want to read Malady after reading Ciule. So there's a couple of reasons for this that I will spell out here. So number one, Trisha Wolfe's writing hasn't really been for me. I read some of her stuff, specifically her duet about the serial killer and the psychologist, back when I was first reading some psychopath romances and like really darker romance. And I was kind of interested in it, but it was more of like a psychological thriller than like a romance, in my opinion. Like there was definitely romance in there, the feelings were strong, but it was all about the game of wits. It was very like, I could see it as being a movie or like an episode of a TV show. I didn't really connect with her characters. However, when I was reading all of the books in the Underworld series, which I haven't read all of them now, but I've read most of them, Trisha Wolfe had a book in that series, and I really liked it, in the, you know, like mafia universe type thing. And so when I saw that there was ARC signups for Malady, I was like, you know, I'd love to give Trisha Wolfe another try. And here we are. However, this book, if you like that truly madly, like deeply duet, I think you will love this duet. Like I absolutely do. It's just not a story that I want to read, and so I kind of, but the books are each not very long. Like the first one was only 210 pages, and I'm pretty sure the second one's about the same. So they're very quick. If you read them back to back, you could get done really quick. And so I will still finish Malady. I will still do a review. I just am not in a rush because I'm pretty sure I'm not going to rate it that highly. So what is it about? What is Ciule about? We'll set it up. So we have our heroine is the psychopath in this one, and she is revenge for hire. So women hire her to like ruin the men who have screwed them over. This means usually fucking up their business or embarrassing them somehow or blackmailing them. And that's what she does. And our hero, his name is Alex, and at the beginning of this, he is at the same party where Blakely, the heroine, is trying to get her mark, you know, the guy she's there to ruin. And Alex is hitting on her and asking her to go home with him because she's pretending to be a escort. She's pretending to be an escort, and Alex is like pretending that he wants to buy her from the guy that she's with that night, and keeps messing with him. And so Blakely actually uses some of the drugs she brought along with. She brought like GHB along with to knock out the guy she was going to get revenge on. And she uses it on him to get him out of her way. And it kind of ruins her plan for revenge for that night. So she like bails out of it. And then it turns out our male lead, Alex, she was the one he was really targeting. Because what Alex does is he is a mad scientist who is trying to find a cure for psychopaths. Because he had a loved one, I don't want to spoil all of this, but he had a loved one who met an unfortunate end because of a psychopath. And so for the last few years, he has been finding psychopaths, kidnapping them, and trying to fix them. And that's what's happening to Blakely, because he set his sights on her and she's proven herself to be a psychopath, and he's going to try to get her. So this was just one where like neither of them is likable. Neither of them is likable to me. at all. In general, there aren't many. I haven't read a ton. There are not many female psychopaths that I could love in the way that I can love male psychopaths. I don't care if that's sexist. That's my reading taste. I can read a woman who's a bitch or cold-hearted or misunderstood. In fact, tough women with a gooey center is like my shit lately. It is better than Ambrosia to me. But this woman being a psychopath, I just don't like it. Now, there are some hints that the second book will play out different for that. That's why, like I said, I am going to read it, and I'm not hoping to hate it. But this was just a case of, like, I shouldn't have asked for these as arcs, because I don't like to take books from authors when I'm not, when I don't think that I'll like them. I mean, I always hope that I'll like them, but I should have trusted my gut and not, but I wanted to give her another try. So this one was 3.5 stars for me. I did round it up to 4 stars to do a review, because again, I'm not mean. I said the reasons I didn't like it though. And this one was only 1.5 on the spice rating. So there's not much sexual interaction between them. It's a lot of lust that they're feeling, which is fine. It's fine. Okay, then I read Waiting for Forever by Alexis Winter. So this was when I was like, I was on a roll that night, and I was like, okay, I don't need to read a fan fiction. Keep going, read other stuff. And this book was one that straight up popped up on my Amazon recommended for you as a new release, and I bought it, not realizing it was book 5 in the series, but that's okay. It had a really hot guy on the cover. It reminded me of Jason Momoa. I think I've actually read a book with this guy on the cover before, and I liked the premise of it, because it was going to be an abused woman who gets away from her husband and is like on the run. And I actually really like stories like that. I know that's weird, but I really like when a woman who's never been able to trust someone finds someone who loves her so much. It's one of the reasons why, like, Savage Tracker was one of my favorite books last year. It's just, it gives me the feel. So, and then the premise had said that, so she'd got away from her husband, and for the last 3 years she's been staying in this small town. She's like I think she does like yoga classes there, or works at a bar, and our hero is the chief of the firefighting crew, and I'm pretty sure the other books in the series are about like some of his other firemen and everything. The covers for this whole series are gorgeous, by the way, like excellent. And so at the beginning of this book, Steph is the heroine, Ryder is the hero. They are trying to go on a date for the first time. So they've been friends. This is like a friends to lovers, and Ryder finally asks her out. She's like, oh, is he just asking me to friend, or does he like, and he's like, I want to be clear in no uncertain terms, like, this is a date. I want to get to know you and see. He's a widower. He lost his wife and unborn child in an accident, and this is the first time he's tried again. The biggest issue I had with this book is that the writing wasn't great. I hate saying that, y'all. I hate that being my reason. But honestly, there's so many elements of this that I would like. Like the hero, he's this sweet, strong, like small town hero, sexy, wonderful. But when he opens his mouth, he is a dirty talker. It's beautiful. But their dialogue between the two of them and their interactions was so, like, it was awkward in my opinion. And the way that the story played out, this is a very short book. It was like 20 pages. And the level of drama involved, like the stuff that happens with her husband and like all of these things, was so like overblown, but not enough emotion involved. Like everything was happening very quickly. And like, I know they were friends beforehand, but like it goes from 0 to 100 and I just don't know what was happening. Like, I don't know. So this one was only a 3-star for me. It was a 3.5 on the Steam scale though, because it was pretty spicy. Then, again, I was on a roll and I read One Night Love by Hope Ford because I saw this cover and it got me really excited. This was a plus-size heroine. This is a novella, which I don't always read, so be proud of me. This one was only a 75, 80 pages. It was a one-night stand. It is a star athlete and this plus-size heroine who she actually goes to the bar looking to have a one-night stand because she wants a confidence boost, but she's getting hit on by this guy who is coming on too strong, and so this hero comes by our hero, what's his name? Matt, and he pretends to be her date and like kisses her in front of this guy, and they both really like it. So she invites him home with her, and it turns out that they have mutual friends. So he ends up like hanging out with her for the weekend, and then it's gonna like work out for them or whatever. So this was really cute, sweet. Matt was so protective right from, you know, like page 2. And it was just sweet. Like, it was sweet. I loved April. She was very confident with her body, even though, you know, like I said, she wanted a confidence boost of having a one-night stand. She wasn't, like, a body-hating herself at all. She just wanted that boost. So this one I gave 4 stars, and this was 2.5 on my spice scale. Then we have some more fan fictions to talk about. So again, I'll refer you to the video up here if you want in depth, because I'm going to kind of push through these pretty quickly here. So I read Remain Nameless by Hey Jude 19. This is one I've really been wanting to get to, because when I looked at a list of like the top Draco and Hermione fan fictions of like all time, this is very high on people's list. This one does have an audio on Spotify if you want to listen to it. It's done by ETL Echo Studios. And this one was a slow burn, enemies to friends to lovers, grumpy sunshine, PTSD to work through. This one was all the events of Harry Potter happened, but the epilogue is different. You know, that's changed. It's like 8 years later. And Draco has went through a lot of therapy and a lot of counseling. He has, you know, like paid for his crimes and is trying to be a productive member of society. And he is slowly starting to get back into like public life. And so he finds this muggle coffee shop where no one knows his name, where no one is going to be trying to photograph him or bother him. And he starts going there for coffee every day. And eventually he realizes that Hermione Granger also frequents this coffee shop. And for the next year or so, they meet and have coffee there together every day, and they become friends. And so this really is like them working through any residual like issues between them, to becoming friends, to trying to see if they could date each other, to more. And it was very sweet. I really did love this. Once we got to the steam, it was excellent. And it's not like it actually takes that long. It just kind of feels like it because the book is very long. But we had steam starting at like 30%. It just took a while to get there. And then it lasted too long, which, you know, that's a common critique that I will put up for fanfic, because it's like, I feel like sometimes when a fanfic author has a good thing going, they don't know when to end it, which, whatever, it's still fantastic. So this one I gave 4 stars, and it had 3.5 on the spice rating. There's a lot of like, Draco is the king of consent in this one, because he never wants to, he's always very nervous about if his like persona would pressure Hermione into anything, which is like, boy, you ain't pressuring her into anything. It's okay. But I loved it. And then definitely PTSD and like nightmares are a big trigger in this one. Then there's Shame's Desire by WildKitsune, and this was a Lucius Malfoy and Ginny Weasley, kind of sort of like a historical vibe. This is an age gap, arranged marriage, kind of coerced marriage at the same time, a like kind of forced pregnancy. I keep saying kind of because like she marries him to kind of save her family, because the Weasleys are in some like issues with, in this one the Dark Lord is actually the Emperor, and he's like ruling over the area, and like Lucius is one of his like feudal lords kind of situation, and so he wants another heir, you know, in case anything were to happen to Draco. And so he is like, when they get married, he's trying to get her pregnant, and she like isn't ready for that yet, but he's like, no, you're marrying me like because I need an heir type thing. There is BDSM and kinky play, dynamic stuff in this, and then enemies to lovers. This one was very intense, but it is cool because this one is maybe one of the furthest away from a like quote unquote like normal Harry Potter world that I've read, because a lot of the other ones have a lot more things in place. This one was just so different, you know, which I liked because it was refreshing in that way. And I loved, you know, because the kind of like BDSM and dynamic play in this one is the kind that really like gets into your soul. Like I love that kind of really deeper things. But this one is a bit heavier, and again, like the Dark Lord is around, Bellatrix is around, and they are trying to make Ginny's life difficult in a lot of ways, which isn't always fun. But I gave this one 4.5 stars, and it was a 4.5 on my spice scale. Like, oh boy, this was a lot. This one, though, does have, like, the dubious consent. He uses a lust potion on her in the beginning, so that's, you know, against it. There is attempted sexual assault from a different character, and then I did put the drugging on here because he uses a lust potion on her to make her want him in the beginning. Then I read The Masked Lady by Snape's Goddess, and this one is a Lucius and Hermione, and this one was so much fun. This was a, like, the regular world happened. We were like, I'm not quite sure if it's like 10 years. I don't know. I'd say it's 7 to 10 years afterwards. Lucius is a widower at this point. Draco has married, did he marry Astoria or Pansy? I don't know who he married in this one. He married somebody in this one. And so Lucius is an empty nester, and he's alone in his home, and he's a grump. He's a grump. And there is this masked lady who is stealing from rich wizards and donating the funds to the poor. And who do we think that is? Well, it's Hermione. And one night she robs Lucius, and there is heavy sexual tension between them. And like, she knows who he is, but he doesn't know who she is. And over the next few months, she continues to rob him. And instead of stopping wearing his precious jewels and gems, he purposely wears them to attract this masked lady to him, because he's starting to get the hots for this woman who shows up and is able to like disarm him and have him at her mercy. And that eventually culminates in her sneaking into his home, and they have sex, and he unmasks her. And he is like, oh, okay, I'm a bit stunned that this is Hermione Granger, but we have such amazing chemistry, and I love like banter with her. And so he is like, he's ready to like date her. Like, he kind of is. He's like, I think I want her. And she is kind of like, oh, now he knows who I am. He's not going to want to be with a muggle witch. And so she kind of like leaves. And he is furious that she left him. And not only that, she agrees to stop being the masked lady for her safety, because he's like, I don't want anyone to catch you. But now someone else is pretending to be the masked lady and actually hurting people in the name of the masked lady. So then it becomes kind of a whodunit story. So I loved this one. It made me laugh. Their characters were definitely not like canon at all. And not just because they're doing different things. Like, you know this if you've read any fan fiction at all, but if you haven't, like, sometimes there's people who write the fan fiction and they try to write that character as true to what you've read in the books as possible. And then there's ones who, like, basically they just have the same name and the same job as the character, but their personalities are very different. This one was definitely one of those where, like, Hermione is very, like, she's kind of, like, dominant in her relationship with him, and they, like, trade off, like, who's in charge of, like, sexy time and things like that. And so it's definitely not, like, a Hermione I would think of. But I gave this one 5 stars, and I gave it 4 on the spice scale. And really the only trigger warning is there's some, like, violence in this one. But there's no, like, sexual triggers or, like, anything else. This was just a fun, wonderful time. And I definitely downloaded some other of Snape's Goddess's works because I really liked how they wrote. Okay, 2 more to go that aren't fan fiction. I read The Dragon's Bride by Katee Robert. I am one of her Patreons, so I received an early release or an arc of this. This comes out the end of March. She got this arc done for us pretty early. So this was a fantasy. This is a monster romance, if you can't tell from the cover. This is a dragon with 2 dicks. Our heroine, Briar, has entered into a deal with a demon. So there's this head demon named Azazel, and he will make a deal with a person to grant a wish and they owe 7 years of slavery in the demon realm, and they pay that off right away. Well, meanwhile, like, not as much time passes in, like, the human realm. So they will owe 7 years of servitude in the demon realm, but not as much time will pass in the human realm. So they won't, like, age or have, like, missed out on life. So our heroine, Briar, is in an abusive marriage, and Azazel, like, saves her from that. And so she gets taken and put on the auction block, because then the other, like, demons and creatures, they can bid on one of these humans' debt, and they, like, purchase them to have their debt paid out. And so our hero in this one is Ciule, who is this dragon with 2 dicks. And he buys her debt because he's looking for a wife, and he wants to have children. But any children that she were to have with him when she has to leave in 7 years, she would have to leave them behind. And Briar does not want that. So she is like, you can't make me have kids with you. Like, you can make me marry you because that's what the deal is for this, but you can't make me have kids with you. And so Ciule, you know, kind of wants to convince her of that. So this had, you know, forced marriage, kind of coerced marriage. There is, you know, like a fake relationship / like there will be sex happening in their relationship, enemies to lovers, and then, you know, we got our dragon here. This was an anticipated book for me, and I'm sad it didn't really work for me that well. And it makes me sad because Katee Roberts, one of my favorite authors, and particularly her recent traditionally published books like the Dark Olympus series, I just really love them. And I always know what I'm going to get out of Katee. Like, I really do. Like, I know what I'm getting from her indie published books. But this one, I think it's maybe because I've been hyped for it for so long. And I just did not believe the love that happened between them. Because, so she's supposed to be there in servitude to him for 7 years. And the entire part of them, like, her moving with him, becoming a thing, her falling for him, only takes a month of that time. I don't understand why we had to push them to be in love in a month's time. I really wish that it would have taken longer. And I only would have needed her to say, like, I was with him for this many months and I was starting to fall for him. But it literally all happens in the first month that she's there. And I don't like that, because there's valid reasons why our heroine does not like this hero right away. And she's not happy about any of this situation, even though it got her away from an abusive husband. That's great. But the fact that it was either like, oh, let my abusive husband kill me one day or become a slave to a demon for 7 years, I feel like she still should have stayed prickly for longer. I'm sorry. It just felt very rushed. And then when things get talked about to do with, like, the pregnancy and everything, like, you know, if they will have kids, like, the decision-making process in that realm just really frustrated me. So, yeah, I gave this one 4 stars, and I gave it 3 on the spice rating. It was not as kinky and spicy as I thought for it being a monster fucking book. I'm just saying, this is hyped so high for all the monster fucking there's going to be, and I don't. So there was primal play and slavery are kind of the triggers for this. So sorry that's a downer, but that's my personal opinion. I love Katee Roberts. I'm a stan for her, but to me that was not her best work, and I'm disappointed because I was very hyped for it. Then the last book that I finished was Slightly Wicked. Yes, I finally got this on Libby, and this is the 2nd book in the Bedouin saga. So this one is about Ranulph Bedouin, and he is going on a trip to stay with his grandmother. He's actually his grandmother's heir, because, like, he's the 2nd of the brothers, and he's his grandmother's heir. And so he's going to stay with his grandma, and his grandmother really wants him to get married so that he will have an heir to what she is giving him. And he's okay with that. He's okay with meeting the woman that she wants him to meet, and he wants to learn more about her land and how he could be a good steward for what she's going to be giving him. Because he is very lucky as a 2nd son that he has such a wonderful grandmother and that she would give this to him. So anyway, on his way to his grandmother, he comes across a carriage that has been in an accident, and our heroine, Judith, is a poor relation. Like, her family is in some financial trouble, so she's going to stay with a wealthy, like, she's actually going to stay with her grandmother, who is ailing a little bit, or like needs a companion. And she is basically going to be giving up any hope of like her future to do this, so that like her younger sisters don't have to, you know, be someone's companion and miss out on love. And she is in this carriage accident, and her and Ranoff end up staying at an inn together, and they actually end up having like a weekend fling. And she's pretending to be someone else when this is happening. She's pretending to be an actress on her way to someplace to perform, just because she's like, I'm never gonna see this guy again. Let me just have my fantasy and let me be with this guy, because I'm never gonna have a chance to do that. Well, then he ends up really falling for her. They have great sexual chemistry, and he's like, you know, my grandma doesn't know I'm coming. Maybe we could go and spend a week together, and I could see you perform. And she's like, oh no, I'm gonna have to bail. So she bails, and she goes to be with her grandmother. And who should be her grandmother's best friend but his grandmother? And what house party should his grandmother be going to but her family's house party? And he's supposed to be courting her younger cousin. And first, when he sees her, he's very angry that she lied to him. He's found out that she was a virgin when he bedded her, because there was like blood left on the sheets or whatever. And he like kind of angrily proposes to her about like, you didn't tell me you were like you know, a lord's daughter. Like, I need to marry you. And in his own head, he's thinking that like, well, I need to marry anyway. She's still related to this family. I know we have great sexual chemistry. Like, let me do this. But that is not how he proposes to her. He proposes to her like he's doing her a favor. Very much in a Mr. Darcy fashion, I will say. There were so many moments in this story that reminded me of like different Jane Austen movies. And just in general, Mary Balogh does that quite well. And Judith is like, no. You think you can propose to me that way? And I'm going to say yes. Like, I'm not pregnant. I'm not planning to marry anyone anyway, so it doesn't matter if I'm a virgin or not. And I don't want to be with someone who treated me that way when he proposed to me. So I really love how strong Judith was. I really enjoyed this one. Two things that made it difficult. One, the romance really takes a back seat in this one. After the initial, like, this is like a one-night stand thing. There's a big section of this book where there's not even any more like romantic movement in their story together. It's very pushed off. And then the other thing, her family is horrendous to her. It reminded me a little of Mansfield Park. Like, her grandmother loves her and like her brother loves her, but they are very like disrespectful to her. Not her grandmother, but like the aunt and the cousins at this. And they're also very jealous of her. Like, they force her to cover her hair and to wear very dowdy clothes because she is a stunning woman, and they don't want her to outshine their own daughter. So there was just so much of that. It was just like, I wrote in my notes that this book gave me a lot of Cinderella vibes for the like, she pretended to be someone else and then she is like a servant, kind of. And then with the Pride and Prejudice vibes. It was good. So yeah, I did have a good time with this. I gave this one 4 stars, and this was 2 on my spice scale. The triggers for this, there is an attempted assault at one point, not by the hero, and then I also did put cruel family as like a trigger because it's so infuriating, and if you have family members who are condescending like this, you know what I'm talking about. So anyway, there you go. Those are all the books that I read in this last week. I can't believe we're wrapping up February this week. I will hopefully have my monthly wrap up soon. Also this week, you can expect, like I said, some Outlander content. I have 2 videos planned that I will be doing with friends. I have collaborations coming. I'm very excited to share those with you. And yeah, thank you so much for watching. Thank you to my channel members. And